She wanna woo. She wanna with the woo. She wanna with the woo.
How's it going, Scrubs? There has been so many movies that had been well loved, successful, and had a cultural impact in the entertainment world, but of course some of the movies has not been loved and are downright atrocious, bombed in the box office and also bombed by ratings and angry reviews alike. Which movies are most despised, and how do these movies fare against my top 10 worst movies of all time from 2020? Which is worse, the old or the new? Let's check out the 10 most hated modern movies. I'll be focusing on movies from the last 3 to 5 years, and before we start, spoiler alert, let's go. Number 10. Nope. Number 11. Joker Folie à Deux or Madness of Two. I don't know what is this movie actually aiming for. Joker 2 is a continuation of the first Joker movie. It's about Joker meeting the love of his life, Harley Quinn, while incarcerated at the Arkham State Hospital. I watched this movie in cinemas a while back and I was bored to tears of how dull this movie is. The first Joker movie was decent and it had a lot of memorable moments like the iconic stair scene. The story was decent as well. The obvious reasons why Joker 2 had bombed hard: because it's a musical, which the first one didn't have. The music aspect of it is not well liked. The musical scores it has was either boring or underwhelming. The story was almost non-existent. Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn had barely any screen time and the ending is somehow worse than the beginning, which I'm not gonna tell you because spoilers. The cinematography and visuals it has from the first movie still looks good. Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga did great as Joker and Harley Quinn. I understand they're trying to do something different with this movie, but it didn't work out as they hoped for. Some say the director had made this movie bad on purpose so Warner Brothers won't harass him for a third installment. Rumors aside, this movie is a huge downgrade compared to the first. This movie took $40 million on the opening weekend at the box office, which is way more lower than the Marvels, which we'll get to that next. This data will be dated soon because the overall gross earnings is still counting as of making of this video, and the critics and audience scores tells you otherwise. Let's see the public's reaction.
Joker Folie à Deux is a musical slog, a slog through 2 hours of vaguely comic-tinted nihilism that manages to render both itself and its predecessor utterly pointless. Set on tediously considering its predecessor, Joker Folie à Deux offers nothing to the franchise, a vague and incoherent bummer of a film that even the dedication and charisma of Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix can't redeem.
Now how does Joker 2 compare to the worst movies of all time? This movie is easily compared to Milan 2, another sequel that is not well loved. At least for this movie it had some decent musical scores and there are scenes that are at least memorable, like Milan soldier buddies and the princesses building relationships. This movie was hated for the characters that were being dicks for no reason, and the story is bland. Joker 2 might become a cult classic in the future and many people will grow to like it, but I don't see that happening anytime soon, so that's 1 point for the old versus the new. Number 10. The Marvels. People have high expectations for Marvel movies that would match the quality and hype after Infinity War and Endgame, but those movies were divisive and not well loved. Not even the shows are safe. I was gonna choose Love and Thunder, Quantumania, The Internals, but in terms of Marvel movie that I got bored the most from post-Endgame is The Marvels. This movie is about Captain Marvel reclaiming her identity from the tyrannical Kree and taking revenge on the Supreme Intelligence. Her powers became entangled with 2 other superheroes to form the Marvels: Monica Rambeau aka Spectrum and Kamala Khan aka Miss Marvel. Nobody hates the movie because it's an all-female cast. The main reason why the Marvels were strongly despised is bad writing and bad storytelling. Captain Marvel was at least a decent solo origins movie and at least add something to the story. During the productions of Endgame, Spider-Man, Black Panther and Captain Marvel are gonna be the new faces of the Avengers in the MCU, but the hype had slowly dissolved. Chadwick Boseman that played Black Panther passed away. Tom Holland as Spider-Man will be seen less in the future because of Sony's plans, and Brie Larson as Captain Marvel doesn't have the best reputation as a person, and that's where the Marvels are doomed from the start. There was no interests of the movie. The marketing was abysmal. Lack of supervision. The cast weren't that great. Even though one of those characters are from WandaVision and Miss Marvel, the movie feels like it's jumping from one adventure to the next with little time in between. The oversaturation of Marvel content releasing in recent years, and once again, bad directing, bad screenplay, bad character development, over-preaching female empowerment, forced political correctness, and overall bad management. And the Marvels became one of the worst performing movie in the box office in 2023 and is one of the lowest performing movie in MCU history, which on opening weekend is $47 million, and the overall gross earnings of $206 million, which the movie cost almost $275 million to make.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Let's see what the people had to say about the movie.
No amount of body switching gimmickry can save this film.
Morbius was truly ahead of its time for the MCU.
Amazing how Disney has managed to turn off 2 of the most passionate fan bases with the MCU and Star Wars.
I went from meeting up with my friends for every Marvel movie to not even speaking to them when Marvel movies come out.
out.
Yeah, that's pretty true.
Now how does the Marvels compare to the worst of the worst? The closest equivalent I can think of is Fantastic Four, the 2015 version. This movie feels less like a superhero origin story and more of sci-fi horror mixing up with the dark vision of DCEU. And you guessed it, the writing and storytelling is pretty bad. That movie flopped harder than the Marvels, losing between $80 to $100 million on a $120 million budget. At least for the Marvels it had some decent moments, and thank the Lord that movie tanked. We'll just have to wait for the new Fantastic Four movie in 2025. I say I'll give 1 point to the new. Number 9. Mulan 2020. People like myself are so done with Disney live-action remakes, and we just talked about Mulan earlier. The original Mulan is a great movie. It had a great story about her impersonating as a man to join in the Chinese army and a journey of self-discovery and determination, and facing off northern invaders, and had the message of overcoming challenges of moving forward and never give up. Unfortunately, we don't see that on the 2020 version. Disney is trying to go with a culturally accurate story with this movie, but it didn't work. This Mulan is basically a superhero and made to be more skilled and professional than anyone else without any sense or explanation. The importance of developing new ways to approach problems is gone. Basically forced political correctness and female empowerment that Disney is doing with the character. The filmmakers tries too hard to pander to China. It comes off as stereotypical. Family names are butchered, the ballad is mishandled, and historical inaccuracies run rampant. It disconnects between casting a mostly Chinese cast with an all-white creative team, as well as out-of-touch marketing campaign that failed to connect with. This movie just felt flat and uninteresting. Criticism has been erupted that during film and production of the movie, some of the scenes of the movie has been filmed in the autonomous region of Xinjiang. This region is notoriously known when Uyghur Muslims have been detained in mass internment camps. The lead actress Liu Yifel supports Hong Kong police. Her sentiments come off as a support for police brutality, and actual Chinese viewers were not thrilled at all with the movie. Most say that it's too westernized, feels wooden, and offensively inauthentic. Let's see the public's reaction.
Kung Fu Panda was more respectful to Chinese culture.
I'm Chinese and my disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined.
Most of the scenes were basically like, hey, remember the scene from the cartoon? Yeah, we remade it here. Moving on.
This movie brought dishonor upon me, my family, and my cow.
Now how does Mulan compare to the worst movies of all time? Basically any other lazy live-action Disney remakes. I say neither gets a point. Number 8. Morbius and Madam Web. What do those two have in common? They're Sony Spider-Man movies. Morbius is a Spider-Man villain who injected himself with vampire bat DNA to cure his rare blood disease and turned to a living vampire with superhuman powers. And Madam Web is a Spider-Man hero and an advisor that was a New York City paramedic who shows signs of clairvoyance that is there to protect 3 young women who are being hunted by Spider-Man from Temu. There's nothing wrong with having a spin-off or an origin story about the Spider-Man characters, but it's not a Spider-Man movie without, you guessed it, Spider-Man. It's no secret why those two movies flopped hard, and the most common opinions are the acting was atrocious, very cheesy dialogue, poor storytelling, wonky cinematography, and certain scenes pander for too long or scenes that are too good lasted only for under a minute. Rotten Tomatoes for Morbius is 15% and Madam Web is 11%, and to be honest I actually thought those movies were funny. Those two movies are mainly so bad but so funny. Morbius went viral on TikTok and everyone says it's peak cinema just to trick Sony, and ended up having empty seats in theaters. Madam Web had advertised Pepsi non-stop and has one of the most Sony Spider-Man coded villain who's hilariously tedious. It was memed hard for being bad. I'm pretty sure the Kraven the Hunter movie will join with those two movies if the movie comes out.
The fact that this film was released on April 1st makes me think of it as the greatest April Fool's joke of all time.
I heard that you mobbing to me scene was completely improvised by Jared Leto himself, truly one of the actors of all time.
Morbius walked so that Madam Web can drown.
Madam Web is the world's punishment for memeing on Mary Beast 2 years ago.
Now how does those two compare to the worst movies list? The closest I can find is Dracula Untold and A Mummy 2017. Universal was creating their own MCU called the Dark Universe, where it's a rebooted version for films of famous creatures like Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman and many more. But since Dracula Untold is panned by critics and audience, the potential of the universe is pretty bleak. And then The Mummy came out, which bombed hard at the box office and was torn apart by critics and audience alike. Those movies were badly written story-wise and character-wise as well. The Dark Universe tanked due to bad planning and lack of clear direction. Morbius and Madam Web may have absurdity, but at least I don't feel outright angry watching it. Those two are iconic for the wrong reasons, so I'll give 1 point to the new. Number 7. Borderlands Turning video games into movies is either hit or miss. Some video game movies were successful, but can't say the same to Borderlands. So Borderlands is a 15-year-old franchise of action role-playing first-person shooter video games developed by Gearbox Software. This franchise takes place in a space western science fantasy world and had great humor and loot-driven multiplayer co-op gameplay. So why did the movie flop? Because Hollywood doesn't treat the source material with respect. This movie was rated PG-13. While the franchise has dark and edgy humor, gore and other elements that had been pushed away in this movie, it feels flat. The humor is atrocious. The story and characters were badly written. The visuals of the movie looks dull. The action sequences made by Kids 3 look epic. The directors and writers completely missed the point of the game as a whole. It may have A-list actors starring in the movie, but it doesn't change the fact that the movie is a massive train wreck. It bombed hard at the box office. Lionsgate lost $115 million with a budget of $110 to $120 million, and many people hated this movie. Even the fans of the franchise hated it too. The movie has easily forgotten when the Borderlands 4 game trailer dropped.
Hell no man, 100 million budget and they forgot to pay IGN.
Tell me you never played a single Borderlands game without telling me you never played a Borderlands game.
I work at a movie theater and by God there's nobody in the Borderlands showings. Yep, you can tell that movie is unwatchably bad.
What we learned, a bunch of big names doesn't equal a good movie. You're goddamn right. I'd rather go see the Minecraft movie than this monstrosity.
Now how does this movie compare to the worst of the worst? It's easily compared to the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie. Same to Borderlands, this movie doesn't respect its source material. Nothing about this are Mario related. The movie stunk, and the Mario movie we had last year is 100 times more better. Both movies suck, so no points for either. Number 6. Megamind vs. the Doom Syndicate. I never seen an animated movie that I felt bored and annoyed than Megamind 2. This movie is about a former villain Team Doom Syndicate returning to launch Metro City to the moon. This movie got massacred by critics and audience alike. What went wrong? Well, it's the bad writing once again. The characters changes in the sequel is unnecessary. Animation looks dry and dated, and the original voice cast of the first movie were booted off in the sequel. This movie was not released in theaters and was released exclusively by Peacock, judging by the wonky animation, and it also advertised Megamind Rules, a TV series that is not well liked by critics and audience alike. Glad I'm not the only one who feels annoyed by the movie.
There is no Megamind 2, there is no Megamind Rules, and there is no Queen of England.
I had zero clue this was even being made, lol.
This monstrosity of a sequel and that unwatchably bad show had ruined what made the first Megamind movie great.
I don't think it ruined the original. It just has no reason to exist.
First movie, Megamind. Second movie, Nevermind.
Now how does Megamind to stand up to the worst movies list? It's easily compared to Food Fight. This movie feels like a fever dream, and it has similar issues what Megamind 2 have. So guess what? Nobody gets a point. Number 5. Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. So it's a prequel series to the Harry Potter franchise. It's originally gonna be a 5-movie series up until The Secrets of Dumbledore came out, which flopped hard at the box office. The reason why the series went wrong, because like the Borderlands movie, Hollywood doesn't treat the source material with respect. I like the first Fantastic Beasts movie. The story about Newt Scamander discovering magical creatures and people are on board with it, but the series slowly pushed away from magical creatures to Grindelwald and Dumbledore. While those movies aren't inherently bad, but the series went against Harry Potter canon on multiple occasions, which annoyed fans of the original series. Johnny Depp and Ezra Miller are popular in the series. Both were fired due to real-world events, and there isn't a huge demand for a 4th and 5th installment of the series. The franchise never went anywhere due to lack of interest from the general public, which sucks because this series had so much potential, but because of the poor direction and connection to the Harry Potter franchise, the Fantastic Beasts series had fallen flat, and the movie itself, it wasn't bad, but a major disservice to Dumbledore and fans of the original series. Let's see the public's reaction.
I actually liked the first Fantastic Beasts film. It was a fun spin-off about a guy with magic suitcase that collects magical creatures. For some reason they decided to make it the next Harry Potter and failed miserably.
I never thought I could be so bored by a movie about magic and wizards, but here we are. There were too many characters, all of them flat, and the color palette was so muted.
I think Secrets of Dumbledore was better than the last one, but still not good. Was extremely disappointed that they didn't kill Grindelwald in this movie. Makes it obvious that they just make these for money and don't care about the source material or the quality of the film.
That whole movie felt like a community written fanfic on Reddit. Ooh, shots fired.
Now how does Fantastic Beasts 3 compare to some of the worst of the worst? I say the closest equivalent is Terminator Genisys. Basically any Terminator movies after the second one. I say Terminator Genisys is way worse. This franchise went wrong by recycled ideas and poor character development. This movie had poor introductions to new iconic villains, relied too heavily on nostalgia, and its biggest twist was not well received. I don't think the Terminator franchise has any relevancy to keep people interested, so that's 1 point to the new. Number 4. Wish. 2023 has been a horrendous year for Disney. The movie Wish takes the cake. With the celebration of Disney's 100th anniversary last year, they need to make something special for the largest company in the world. So they released Wish, a movie about young Asher makes a wish so powerful that it's answered by a cosmic force, a ball of energy called Star. Asher along with Star defends her kingdom from King Magnifico and prove that when a will of the courageous human connects with the magic of the stars, wondrous things can happen. Disney thought the movie will save their 100th anniversary special. The general public hated it. Reasons? Once again, bad writing, clunky dialogue, the animation style looks dull judging by the budget of 175 to 200 million. Some people claimed the movie to be anti-Christian because of the Disney villain Magnifico. They argued that the villain symbolized God, a wise king who we give our wishes like prayers to, but who decides to grant only some of them rather than all. It seems more of corporate product than a magical event and a forced attempt to recapture some silver of movie magic. Let's get to the real reason why Wish flopped. It's the songs. In Disney movies every song has a purpose. They contain character motivations or plot developments for you to understand the story. It showcases the moments like the villain planning an evil deal or some goof is relevant details to move the plot forward. That's why The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Frozen, Encanto and other successful Disney movies worked. Can't say the same to Wish. The lyrics are generic and don't flow well with the melody. The vocals are great. That's about it. The movie flopped hard at the box office, mostly because it is genuinely not a good Disney movie.
Friendly reminder that Wish had a budget of $200 million while the two Spider-Verse movies put together only total to $1.90 million. There has to be massive accounting fraud going on at Disney or something, because Wish doesn't even look a tenth as good as those movies, yet it cost twice as much to make.
It's almost like they realized, oh shit, it's the 100th anniversary this year, and slapped a gift together from found objects. Except it cost $200 million.
Not having a story to tell seems to be a major issue at Disney.
What a way to commemorate Disney's history. It really shows the evolution of the film industry over these 100 years. One word, bravo.
Now how does Wish compare to the worst movies of all time? The closest comparison I could think of is Home of the Range, one of the lowest rated animated Disney movie of all time. Similar to Wish, the writing and storytelling is pretty dull, too much dialogue, corny humor, and there's very little value or learning potential. At least Wish tried to have a message about pursuing our own dreams and wishes, plus the songs on Home on the Range were bland. This movie flopped due to Disney shifting its focus to CG animated films and temporarily suspending hand-drawn animated films. I never liked Wish, but at least it wasn't as annoying as Home on the flop. Number 3. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. There is nobody in the world that hated this movie way more than Star Wars fans. The most common opinions are that this movie has horrendous writing and storytelling. The characters were ruined, and they threw out a lot of plot points and thematic elements that were set up in The Last Jedi and even some elements that were set up on The Force Awakens. And the most buzz centered around the movie is Emperor Palpatine somehow returned. Rey and Kylo were written not in this movie. The plot twists are dull, and too many dumb one-liners.
I'm the spy.
What? You? What?
Many Star Wars fans torn apart this movie. Not a single Star Wars fan, die-hard or casual fans alike, like The Rise of Skywalker. I loved The Force Awakens. Despite being a rehash of A New Hope, I enjoyed this movie. The Last Jedi was okay. I don't think The Rise of Skywalker is a bad movie, but not better than The Force Awakens. And the sequel trilogy became more hated than the prequels. The visuals and the effects of this movie is still amazing. The action sequences are pretty good, but story-wise, it's not great. You already know Star Wars fans had to say about it.
The new trilogy feels like an essay you wrote the night before it's due.
Can't wait for Disney to drag Vader's corpse back on stage when all else fails.
Keep in mind the guy who wrote Batman v Superman wrote this. Oh, no wonder why this movie was painfully mediocre.
There's a good thing, the ending. Oh, not how the movie ended, just that it ended. Ooh. Shots fired.
Now how does The Rise of Skywalker compare to the worst of the worst? The closest comparison I could think of is Transformers: The Last Knight. The Michael Bay Transformers series started off okay, but as time went on, it overstayed its welcome. The Last Knight is dull. People are sick of the Bayverse and lack of respect to the source material, and now Bay is making a skibbity toilet movie. Even if The Rise of Skywalker isn't great, it's an easy win to the new. Number 2. The Flash. The Flash is traveling through the multiverse to save their loved ones. During their adventure he teams up with an old hero from a previous franchise who is no longer a superhero and facing evil variants throughout his way. The movie had some potential of being a good movie judging by the trailers, but it didn't live up to the hype when it was released. I don't think it was a bad movie. It was due to bad timing. It had 63% of Rotten Tomatoes and 83% audience scores. People liked this movie, but the reaction was different during its premiere. The reason why this movie is hated is the lack of clear direction to its inconsistent consistent tone and execution of multiple storylines. The CGI looks wonky, the cameos that was shown are underwhelming, and the ending is somehow worse than the beginning. Many people were boycotting this movie as because of the Flash lead actor Ezra Miller, who was accused of not so nice things. The marketing for this movie is extremely low. The interviews and press tours had been cancelled due to actions of Ezra Miller. The budget has $200 to $220 million and had a box office of $271.3 million, which is a flop. This movie was supposed to reboot the DCEU, but it failed miserably. DCEU hasn't had a box office hit since the Aquaman movie. Batman vs Superman and the Justice League had damaged the reputation of the universe. DC shows had less viewership compared to what they had before. Zack Snyder is no longer directing DC movies, and all DC projects that are part of the DCEU were scrapped due to Warner's leadership changes, and James Gunn is in charge of DC and is rebooting the universe before the Flash movie premiered. The DCEU ended its 10-year run with Aquaman 2, and the new DC universe that James Gunn is involved in looks promising. Let's see the public's reaction.
The entire CGI budget went into Ezra's bail fees.
Can't believe Ezra Miller didn't mug someone in the theater when you were watching The Flash.
Best part of the film was the 20 seconds of Nick Cage Superman had me laughing out loud for basically no reason. Dang, I forget that he starred in a cancelled Superman movie from the 90s.
The Flash is definitely a movie about the Flash. It has the Flash doing Flash things in a flashy fashion. Too bad they don't have the budget to make the movie using Adobe Flash. Ha ha ha, humorous.
Now how does the Flash compare to the worst of the worst? I say again, it's the Mummy movie from the Dark Universe, and again it's another cinematic universe that is rivaling against the MCU, but failed miserably. At least DCEU had a decent run for 10 years compared to the Dark Universe. This movie once again is pandering and dull. The Flash may have flaws, but at least it's better than the terrible Mummy movie. Before we get to number 1,
Dishonorable mentions.
Okay, let's move on. And last but not least, number 1, Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. Since Pooh became public domain on January 1st, 2022, it didn't take long for the masterminds to make a horror movie centered around a Disney character. This movie is about Pooh and Piglet go on a rampage after Christopher Robin abandons them. This movie is weird. It's obviously low budget judging by how the movie looks. It's filled with inappropriate scenes with intense violence, nudity, graphic sex scenes, dialogue, and drug use. Kids will be scarred for life if they see this movie. It got 3% on Rotten Tomatoes. This movie is just another canned scary movie, but guys in costumes. The cinematography and effects it has is laughably atrocious. This movie earned almost $8 million at the box office. Then there was a second movie, which is an improvement over the first one, with a 46% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the budget had improved as well, and earned $7.5 million at the box office. And out of nowhere, Blood and Honey along with other movies are having an MCU of their own called the Twisted Childhood Universe. We're living in a funny timeline hub. Let's see the public's reaction.
This sounds like one of those creepy pastas that takes a wholesome and safe cartoon and injects a crap ton of horror into a lost episode.
I remember going to the theater and everyone busted out laughing when they saw Pooh for the first time, including me. Yeah, it's the costume and it was random, ha.
The fact they made a second movie means that Morbius 2 is possible.
I'm starting to believe Blood and Honey is produced by 13-year-olds in a middle school film club with a total of $20 and 2 weeks off for break. Ooh. Shots fired, shots fired, shots fired. Oh my handsome face.
Now how does Blood and Honey compare to the worst movies of all time? The closest one that is similar to Blood and Honey is Birdemic Shock and Terror, a movie about mutated birds terrorizing Southern California, and holy cow, the CGI is downright atrocious. The story is bland, the characters are bland, the acting and cinematography is laughably bad. This movie actually premiered in theaters, and somehow the Rotten Tomato score is higher than Blood and Honey. I like how the creator of the Birdemic movie is serious about his project.
I feel great signing the deal, a movie deal here in Hollywood. It was seen by the whole world, and the Hollywood studio be knocking on my door, you know. I mean, that'd be great if a Hollywood studio producer called me up, hey Jane, we like Birdemic, you know, we want to hire you on a 3-picture deal.
But no, this ain't it, Chief. So I'm gonna take 1 point off to the new, just by how unwatchably tedious this movie is. But hey, the new still beats the old. There will always be bad movies, but there will always be good movies as well. If you think I missed a hated modern movie and want to see a part 2, feel free to comment below. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up. Have a great day and stay cool.
It's not that people hate diversity, it's because people hate bad storytelling. You know, look at Peter Pan and Wendy, like look at The Rise of Skywalker. I mean, look at the Marvels, for example. We all know the audience are not stupid.
It's ridiculous. Hollywood is crazy.
And some small group of people are bashing Deadpool and Wolverine because it has some edgy jokes. Okay, and we're only here for the vibes, like...
At least it made over $1 billion in the box office. It was a vibe.